Welcome to the NCDPI Quarterly Update for Dual Language Immersion Programs, or DLI. Today's webinar is the first quarterly webinar of the 2018-2019 school year on Tuesday, October 9th. Here is today's agenda. We're going to start with a welcome and introductions to our NCDPI DLI team and today's speakers in particular. Our spotlight feature today is on the State Board of Education Global Education Update that was just given last Thursday during the regular State Board of Education meeting. We're going to focus on the portion of that looks at the leading edge language instruction commitment of the 5 commitments. Then we'll have updates on the Dual Language Education New Mexico draft standards, as well as professional development opportunities that are coming up, including our NCDLI 2019 International Immersion Conference in February. We'll end with some reminders and resources and then take any final questions, although, as I said, you're welcome to put questions in the question box at any time. Here is our NCDPI DLI team working for you at the state level. We have everyone's picture updated, and we want to let you know who we are. I'm Anne-Marie Gunter. I'm over on the right-hand side as the World Languages Consultant here at the department. The co-lead for this team with me is Ivana Manthrower-Anderson on the far left. She's a Title III or an ESL consultant. Also on the team are Christy Lynch-Ebert. She's the Division Director of K-12 Standards, Curriculum, and Instruction. Howard Ginsberg, the K-12 STEM consultant who's joined our team. Ellen Hart, the North Carolina Virtual Public School Instructional Director for CTE, Flex Learning, Music, Visual Arts, and World Languages. Mia Johnson, the K-3 Literacy Consultant who works with our team. Sherry Vernelson, the Section Chief of Exceptional Children. And Corey Watkins, the MTSS Regional Consultant who's on the DLI team here at the state level. Today you're going to be hearing from, in addition to myself, from Ivana Anderson, Mia Johnson, and Christy Lynch-Ebert. There are a lot of other folks on the line as well, and as I said, if you have any questions, feel free to ask any of us, and we'll make sure we get the right person on the team to address your question. In our webinars, we like to do a little interactivity, see what's on your mind. So let's start with the question, what are your goals with today's webinar? You can check all that apply on this. Are you a teacher leader sharing information with colleagues? Are you an administrator gathering materials for local presentations that you want to share with your own DLI team or others? Are you an educator earning a contact hour for licensure renewal? Are you an individual getting a question answered? Or do you want to remain anonymous on a Tuesday afternoon? We have a poll feature that's internal to GoToWebinar, so I'll go ahead and launch that. You should be able to click on your screen the answers that you would like to choose so that they come up on our poll. Please go ahead and click on those right on your screen. Let's take about 10 more seconds and finish out our poll. All right, thank you for that. It's kind of nice because we can close our poll and then share the results with you so that you know how everyone responded. As you can see from our responses, most people here are either administrators or teachers gathering information to share back with their own DLI programs. We also have some educators here just wanting to earn their contact hour for licensure renewal. And I will tell you that contact hours to accumulate for a CEU can be earned by those who participate in the live broadcast of these webinars. Today's webinar is 1 hour long, so 1 contact hour or 0.1 CEUs can be earned. Please save the email receipt you receive from our GoToWebinar system as well as the certificate to document this contact hour towards the CEU for licensure renewal. That information will come to your email box about 2 hours after the close of our webinar. So look for that email receipt and certificate in your email box tomorrow morning. In addition, a recording is being made of today's webinar, and the archive, including these slides, will be available for local training approximately 1 week from today and possibly earlier. These materials can be used as professional development resources locally, with contact hours documented by the district or school. All right. With that, I also note that we have one or two people who said to the poll that they wanted to be anonymous on a Tuesday afternoon, and that's okay too. All right, let's go ahead and get started with our spotlight today, which, as I said, is on the Global Education Update for the Leading Edge Language Instruction Commitment from the Global Education Task Force report, and that includes dual language immersion, or DLI. When the Global Education Task Force report was first accepted and approved by our State Board of Education in 2013, there were 5 commitments. You can see all 5 of them here. We were looking at robust teacher support and tools, and much work has already been accomplished around that. You may recall that the Global Educator Digital Badge for Teachers came with that first commitment and has now grown and blossomed across our state. We have a number of teachers who have received that. Also, there was a focus on new school models, district networking and recognition with things like the Global Ready Schools and Global Ready District designations, and also strategic international relationships. Today we're focusing on Commitment 2, and it points to implementing quality world language programs and determining criteria for quality world language teachers. In addition, the State Board of Education has noted the commitment to and the student outcomes in dual language immersion programs. And within Commitment Number 2, there was a call for an expansion of these programs to K-12 and to each district for student access. Also, the Global Languages Endorsement is part of Commitment 2, and it's a way to indicate on a student's high school transcript and diploma that they have earned a proficiency level in a language other than English that is useful in career and post-secondary education. So we will spend some time today talking about both the dual language immersion K-12 expansion and our Global Languages Endorsement. Here is Commitment 2, and specifically 2.1, that says we will institute a plan for statewide access to dual language immersion choice opportunities in public education, beginning in elementary school and continuing through high school. So really a focus on that K-12. And we know as DLI educators that, of course, most DLI programs start with a kindergarten cohort of students and grow by 1 grade level each year until they reach first the end of the elementary experience and then into the secondary experience at middle school and high school. So there's a real focus on wanting to have K-12 opportunities with dual language immersion. So before we talk about what was shared and what success we've already seen with this particular part of the commitment, I wanted to ask you, during which time span did your first DLI program begin? Now we've got this broken down by decades or half decades for a very particular reason for this report. So please go ahead and think about that. Your first DLI program, was it in the 1990s? Was it in the first decade of this century? Was it from 2010 to 2014? Or was it very recently, starting in 2015? And we may also have some folks who are on the line who are still planning to start their first DLI program. Please go ahead and let us know in the poll feature during which time span your first DLI program began. Please go ahead and finish up your responses in the next 10 seconds. All right, thank you for filling that out. We can go ahead and close our poll and share the results with you. We have a variety of folks on the line today. I noticed that we have some people who started their first DLI program in all of the categories we listed. So beginning in the 1990s, when we had our first program in the fall of 1990, there are several people who are involved with that program. We also saw a lot of growth in the first decade of this century from 2000 to 2009, and about a third of you said that's when your first DLI program started. The next 5 years brought a few more programs, and I see one or two of you who indicated that time span. And then we've seen the most growth, of course, since 2015 because of some of the things that were shared in the Global Education Task Force report, including this commitment. So I see almost 40% of you are in that category. And there's also a few that are still planning to open a DLI program soon. So that's good as well. So let's look at our growth. When this was presented to the State Board of Education last week, it was presented in several different ways, and we've kept those slides here for you so that you could see it in the same manner. Notice we start at the top, and as I said, the 1990-91 school year saw the first DLI program in our first district. That was actually in Guilford County Schools. Then, 5 years later, we had a total of 4 DLI programs in 2 different districts. In addition to Guilford County Schools, we also had Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools. Then, about 5 years after that, we had a total of 10 programs, still within those same districts, but they were growing. Some of that was natural growth of having started in elementary and now moved to a middle school and then a high school, and some of it was new programs in elementary schools. Notice we also had 2 DLI programs in independent or private schools by the 2000-2001 school year. 5 years after that, we had 22 DLI programs, which means we had doubled the number of programs. We had also increased the number of districts to 6. We had 2 charter schools offering DLI and 3 independent or private schools. 5 years later, in the fall of 2010, we then had 44 programs. So again, we're doubling, it looks like, every 5 years or so. And we're seeing more districts having programs, as well as some additional charter schools and independent schools occasionally. Then 5 years after that, where we had seen the start of the implementation of the Global Education Task Force work, we jumped to 110 DLI programs. Again, some of this is natural growth into the secondary level, but a lot of it is brand new elementary programs, which will someday have growth into the secondary level. And this school year, we have 175 DLI programs across the state. They are in 42 different districts, 5 charter schools, and 6 independent or private schools. So that's a lot of growth. It's interesting to look at this in a chart format. It's also interesting to look at it in other ways. This was one of the slides shared with our State Board of Education last week to think about what this growth means. So you notice that the number of new DLI programs each school year is in blue, and the number total of DLI programs that we have is in red. And so you see over time, there's quite a bit of growth and a big jump here towards the end, during the time in which, as I said, that commitment number 2 from our Global Education Task Force report was enacted. So incredible growth over time. We also grew in the number of languages that we offer in DLI environments. We now have 8 target languages in DLI programs. They're at the bottom of the screen. We have Cherokee, Chinese, French, German, Greek, Japanese, Spanish, and this year in Guilford County Schools, we now have Urdu. So we have quite a bit of offerings for students and for our local communities, and you can see our growth has been pretty tremendous. Sort of interesting to think about where you fall on that chart. We asked you when was your first DLI program started, but you may have second, third, and even fourth DLI programs, or you may be associated with some of those programs that came after yours, or even before, as you've networked and learned from each other as you've established DLI programs. Here's another way we shared this with the State Board of Education to think about how this looks for our entire state and how close we are to getting to fulfilling the full commitment of dual language immersion programs in every district, or so that every student in the state can access them. This map also includes other global education initiatives related to the other commitments that we discussed. So you'll notice that the global education engaged districts, those are the ones who are working on things like Global Educator Digital Badge with their teachers, or maybe the Global Ready designations for either schools or districts. Those are in sort of the tan color, if you will. Our Global Ready School and districts who've earned that designation and been recognized at the State Board of Education meetings are in a pink color. And our DLI districts and charter schools are noted in blue. And so you see a lot of our districts have striping because they are doing both DLI and other things like Global Ready Schools designation, or they're considered Global Education Engaged District. So take a look, and again, picture yourself. Where are you at on that map? Where are you sitting today with your DLI program? And who's around you? The GoToWebinar system also gives us the ability to provide handouts for you. And so one of the handouts that we provide the State Board of Education, we wanted to share with you today. We've always put together a list of our DLI programs across North Carolina. People like that as a handy reference. And so we have the 2018-2019 list of DLI programs in North Carolina by region, which was the one shared with our State Board of Education last week, and is a handout in our webinar today. If you look at your control panel, you'll see that there's a place for handouts, and you'll see that that is there. Now this list by region is also available along with others organized either by district, by language, and by school grade span, and posted on the NC programs page of the DLI wiki that you see noted there. So there's a lot of information you can get, and you can see our DLI programs arranged in different ways depending on your perspective or what information you need locally. I know that many of our parents who contact us about DLI programs reference the one by district and also by language. And then we link them back to our statewide dual language immersion directory, which is always updated and has contact information, as you know, for our DLI coordinators, as well as our principals of our schools, and links to the school websites that have DLI programs. This is to help folks like parents and others reach out quickly to the DLI program that they're interested in learning more about. I'll pause for a minute and let you get that handout and take a look at it and see if there are any questions in the questions box. All right, let's continue on with our spotlight and take a look at the Global Languages Endorsement, which is North Carolina's seal of biliteracy. The Global Languages Endorsement was approved by the North Carolina State Board of Education in January 2015. It is part of what we wanted to accomplish with commitment number 2 in our Global Education Task Force report, and it became available to our graduating seniors beginning with the 2014-2015 school year. So the class of 2015 could earn our state seal of biliteracy. This is critical because this is a way to recognize, of course, multilingualism and bilingualism. It's also a way to show how our graduates are leaving us and continuing on to higher education and post-secondary work of all kinds. We call ours in North Carolina the Global Languages Endorsement, although it is a seal of biliteracy, just like many other states across the country now have, because we already had this idea of a diploma endorsement. So it's one of 5 high school diploma endorsements that our graduates can earn. And it is outlined in the State Board of Education, or SBE policy you see noted on the screen, in case you need that reference. The purpose is to, as I said, to provide a way for students to show their multiliteracy in English and at least one world language. Keep in mind, if they meet the requirements for English and one world language, they can also get the seal of biliteracy in multiple world languages, depending on their background and what they've done to study languages and learn languages. The endorsement is noted on the diploma and the student's transcript, and we do track that information here at the state level to find out how many of our students are earning the Global Languages Endorsement, which is what's on the next slide. We broke this down by graduation year. As I said, this has been available since the class of 2015. that first year, the total number of global language endorsements was just over 1,500, which represented almost 2% of our graduates who were leaving us with global languages endorsements. We noted that there were 27 districts who did that, and the next year was similar. The class of 2016 had a little over 2,400 students, or 2.5% of our graduates total statewide, and again, 27 districts and 1 charter school. For the class of 2017, some interesting things happened with the data. There were only just a little under 1,000 students who earned it, which is about 1% of our graduates, and a drop in the number of districts who were able to show that on transcripts. Now, we do think those first 3 years that we had more students earning the Global Languages endorsement and probably receiving that recognition at graduation, but because the process was manual in PowerSchool, there were several extra steps that had to be followed in order to designate that and have it show up in our statewide data and make sure it showed up on students' transcripts. Starting with the class of 2018, that process in PowerSchool was automated, which means that the PowerSchool system went in and kind of checked for who might be eligible for Global Languages endorsement, and then sort of verified that within the system, either through the process of checking the course sequences they had completed, or looking for other indicators that are noted for earning the Global Languages endorsement. And so this year, we are still looking through the data and verifying some things, but we estimate that 9,000 students from the class of 2018 earned the Global Languages endorsement, and that's about 9% of our graduates. So that represented 92 districts, which is almost all of them. We have 115 districts, so 92 out of 115 had students earning that, and 32 of our charter schools. We do have over 160 charter schools, but keep in mind, not all charter schools have a high school population yet. So this was a very good showing. And we also noted that the data tells us that Global Languages endorsements have been earned in 13 different languages, and they're printed across the screen. They do include our languages in DLI programs, for the most part, as well as American Sign Language, Arabic, Hebrew, Italian, Latin, Persian, Russian, and Swahili. That was very significant for us for several reasons. First of all, we see a great variety and students able to pursue the languages they want and be recognized for that through the Global Languages endorsement. We also saw a couple of languages that, as of yet, are not taught in any K-12 world language programs. Right now, we have 18 different languages that are taught in K-12 somewhere in the state, any traditional public school or a charter school. But we do not have any programs in Persian or Swahili, which makes us think that students whose home language is something besides English are also able to use our Global Languages endorsement to get their language recognized. Likely that is happening with some of the other languages too, like Spanish and Italian. But that's not as obvious in the data to date. So that was kind of interesting for us to see. If you'd like to know more about the Global Languages endorsement and how that works, the brochure for that is a handout in our webinar today. It's also downloadable from the Global Languages endorsement page on the Global Education Wiki noted there. So you can take a look at that and get more information about students earning our state's seal of biliteracy. I'm going to pause here again and check the question box while you take a look at the brochure and download it. All right, I'm not seeing any questions so far. So let's go ahead and finish up our spotlight with this slide. Related to all of our commitments, of course, is collaboration. And so we want to talk a little bit about our DLI collaborations that have gone on that you may well be aware of yourself or even involved in directly. We have a statewide LEA or district and university dual language immersion advisory group at the state level. One thing we've been discussing on the NCDPI DLI team is reinvigorating that group, the DLI advisory group. So if you're currently on there, you'll be getting a message from us soon about whether or not you want to continue in your work with that. And we may also have spots to fill, because on the DLI advisor group, we want to make sure that we have representation from across the state K-20 with different types of programs, new programs, established programs, programs that have various languages, and different models of dual language immersion that they're implementing based on the students that they serve. So look for more information about our DLI advisor group, as well as some of their activities in providing us input and advice on how best to support our growing number of DLI programs. We also have some university collaborations, particularly with UNC Charlotte. The National DLI Teacher Standards and Professional Development work that's happening there, which you're going to hear a little bit more about today, is ongoing and is part of our collaboration. We have a connection with East Carolina University, or ECU, with the DLI Administrator Certificate. That group is already in the serving their second cohort, so their second year. And also in UNC Greensboro, we have professional development for pre- and in-service teachers, and a newly established add-on licensure for ESL teachers with a dual language concentration. That's being piloted with Guilford and Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. In addition, we have our national and international collaboration, and I think most of you know about that, and that's what's in the bottom right-hand corner about the 7th International Conference on Immersion in Dual Language Education. We will be hosting that thanks to our collaborations and partnerships in February in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're going to talk to you a little bit more about that later on, so I'll save the details for then. All right, that's the end of our spotlight for this portion. I want to ask you which of the spotlight items was most interesting to you, and most can be defined any way that you need it to be for your work. So was it the overall growth in DLI programs in North Carolina? Was it the DLI growth in a particular area or year? Was it the details about the Global Languages Endorsement, North Carolina's Seal of Biliteracy? Was it one or more of those? Or is there another one? And you can put that in the question box once you click on that particular response. I'll go ahead and launch that. Please click on your response as we pause and look at the questions box. All right, let's take 10 more seconds and finish up our voting. All right, we have 100% vote. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and show you the results. It looks like we had a lot of interest in the part of our spotlight that looked at the overall growth in DLI programs in North Carolina. As I noted before, these slides will be available to you if you want to share those. And then, of course, you also have access to the flyers and lists of our DLI programs this school year. There were also people, about a third of you, interested in the details of the Global Languages Endorsement, North Carolina's Seal of Biliteracy, as well as about a quarter of you who said you're interested in one or more of the above. So that's great. Thank you. All right. That ends our spotlight, and I'm going to turn this over to Christy Lynch-Ebert to talk to us about some of the NCDPI DLI team updates.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's wonderful to see the representation across our state. I wanted to share with you some global education updates related to DLI in North Carolina public schools. So you just heard some of the highlights from the State Board of Education presentation last week from Anne Marie, and you can see on the slide before you Helga Fasciano at her retirement celebration holding a piece of North Carolina pottery that was given to her, as well as a picture of her with the State Board of Education members where she was recognized for her retirement. The Standards Curriculum and Instruction Division wishes to express our appreciation to Helga Fasciano, Special Assistant for Global Ed at DPI, who retired effective October 1, just last week. We thank Helga for her leadership and wish her well in her next adventures. Under Helga's leadership and many cross-divisional efforts with staff at DPI, as well as external partners, we have planned and implemented and awarded the Global Educator Digital Badge, Global Ready Schools and Districts, Global Languages Endorsements, and have created many resources and communications to support embedding global education efforts in education. North Carolina was recently recognized in an EdWeek blog for our statewide plan, and a Global Ed update was presented last week, as you heard about, at the State Board of Education meeting. The global vision for our state remains in place. We will continue to work with DPI leadership and the State Board of Education on fulfilling our commitments and sustaining our efforts. We at DPI look forward to continuing this journey with you. I did put in the chat box a global, excuse the pun, email address that you can use to contact us with any questions or communications. That is ncglobaleducation@dpi.nc.gov. You can also call 919-807-3817 for questions or communications, and we will direct you to the appropriate point person. We will continue to send regular newsletters and communications to global education contacts in each district. We want to thank you, all North Carolina educators, for supporting the State Board of Education vision that every public school student will graduate ready for post-secondary education and work, prepared to be a globally engaged and productive citizen through access to needed resources and rigor. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to speak with you and for your support of these efforts in our schools.
Great. Thank you. So that brings us back to a slide of our NCDPI DLI team, because as you know now, since Helga has retired, we've had some changes, and you see some new faces there. And we introduced those folks at the top of the webinar. But I also wanted to share with you that we are discussing who all needs to be on our NCDPI DLI team. We do note that we are getting a number of programs that have reached the secondary level, and we may be expanding who we have on the team so that they can give input and advice on things like our standard course of study for science, such as the K-12 STEM consultant who's already joined us, or social studies, or other areas like advanced programs, because we know a lot of students, when they do their secondary immersion continuation, do so in world languages and then continue to study the target language, but also usually do so in some content area like science or social studies, and eventually get to things like AP exams, IB exams, and other kinds of advanced programming en route to graduation. So we may be changing up our team a little bit and welcoming some new members. We also thought this was a good time to ask you that same question. Who is on your DLI team at your district or your charter school or your school where the DLI program is located, or who should be on your DLI team? Our focus on the DLI team is to advise on growth, either across K-12 or across our districts and schools, and you might be looking at that too. How does your K-12 sequence work, or how will it work when you get students at that point? How will that also look across your district or the schools in your district or sequence? Because obviously, most districts want to establish feeder patterns or a way to make sure that K-12 sequence is accessible to a variety of programs if you have multiple DLI programs at the elementary level. Our DLI team is also a sounding board for questions, meeting student needs, and discussing program goals in general. And they consult on things like messaging about our programs, our social media, and communications. So that's the kind of thing that a lot of DLI teams do. So take a moment and put your response in the question box to either who is on your DLI team, who are your members, who do they represent, or what areas do they represent, or maybe who should be on your DLI team if you don't yet have a DLI team. I'll pause for a moment and let you think about that. Please put that, as I said, in the question box. All right, I'm starting to see some responses From one of our programs in the West, they said on their DLI team is a school administrator, a district administrator, several teachers, and instructional coaches. From one of our DLI programs in the Northwest, Region 7, I believe, their DLI team is comprised of a DLI coordinator, the principal, where the program is located, a curriculum facilitator, a curriculum director, and the superintendent. One of our DLI programs says the director of languages is, in fact, the DLI team. And oftentimes we hear about our DLI team starting as a force of one and then expanding out as there's a recognition of the need for more educators to be involved, to give input, and to know what's happening with the DLI program so that it can expand K-12. One person noted that on their DLI team are several experienced and innovative teachers that have been recognized for the kind of things they do in their classrooms that help students learn languages and also have a successful experience in DLI in general. Another group said that they have on their DLI team administrators from schools with DLI programs and the teachers involved, as well as some instructional facilitators. Another person noted that they have the principal of the school and the county coordinators. And usually when there's county coordinators, it's the DLI coordinator or it's someone who has responsibility for world languages and perhaps English as a second language or ESL. This next person said the assistant superintendent is on the DLI team along with the director of the program and the school site administrator, and that their DLI team will actually expand as the program grows into different schools. This last person who's noted says their team consists of the ESL coordinator, the assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction, the elementary director, a board of education member, and principals involved with the program. So it sounds like the DLI team can be comprised of a lot of different people, depending on what the needs are of the district and the programs as they launch and grow. We do have one final DLI team. This person says there's the principal, regular education teachers, ESL teachers, the academic facilitator, and specialty teachers on their DLI team. Also, we have a DLI team that has the World Language Program Manager and the Title III District Coach. Very good. Well, thank you for sharing with us about your DLI team. You're going to be hearing more about that as we go, because as we know, if you want to really support a program and grow with it, the team approach is always a winner. All right, let's move on to our updates for today. We're going to get an update on the draft national standards for DLI, as well as professional development. So I'll go ahead and turn that over to my colleagues.
So this is Ivana Manthor-Anderson. Wanted to talk to you a little bit about the National Dual Language Education Teacher Preparation Standards. And I wish I could see a show of hands. So if you can click on your hands, how many of you are aware of the work that's being done to bring national standards for dual language teacher preparation? I'm seeing some hands go up, a few of them. Great. All right, so a few of you are aware of that work. So why is that work even being undertaken? One of the reasons that the group that's working on this decided that it was really essential to work on the teacher preparation standards was the fact that we have a national shortage for teachers for the dual language programs. And I'm sure many of you have experienced that in your programs. And we know that one way to help strengthen that pool is to actually have something in place where we can make sure that the teachers are coming in prepared for the work we're asking them to do. If you have gone to conferences like La Cosecha or collaborated with other dual language programs around the states of the United States, you know that each state, and sometimes maybe even each district, has different context or different parameters for how they determine who to hire, what requirements there are for those teachers. And in order to have teacher certifications, licensures, add-ons, we need to have standards in place in order to train those teachers. So in 2015, a group of scholars in the field came together and said, you know, we all agree that this need is here. What are we going to do about it? So from 2016 to 18, that group began sharing with other groups. There were meetings that were held at places like pre-conference days of La Cosecha, where a number of scholars in the field came together and said, you know, again, we're all in agreement. what do we do with this? So Dr. Joan Lachance and Michael Guerrero came together with DLE&M and some other scholars and drafted the first draft of the National Dual Language Education Standards. The copyright was established in May of 2018. Many of you know Dr. Joan Lachance, who is at UNC Charlotte here in North Carolina, and Michael Guerrero is with the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. So that copyright was established, and in June it was open for public comment. Now that hyperlink is there because the public comment is actually still open. And when you click on the link, you'll have the access, go ahead to the next slide, you'll have access to the entire document, which includes the preface and the rationale. So I'm going to give you just a moment to read a quote from both page 1 and page 6 of this document. So some of the words that stand out for me are preparation, and that's preparation that gives guidance, and it's nationally systematized. So again, that link is at the bottom for you to take a moment to look at that document. I think that if you will open that document and think about your context, think about the teachers, think about the students and what the needs are as you read through the introduction to the standards as well as the proposed standards, I think you'll see the power behind what is being recommended. Right now, although they are beginning to edit, the window is still open for feedback and comments. If you go on to the next slide. So from the feedback that has been received so far, some of the strengths have to do with the connection to the relevant literature and the sound theoretical framework. They included things such as the sociocultural competencies, ideological viewpoints, and vantage points for advocacy. Some challenges that have been noted are the fact that this is very specialized content. And if you've worked with any university, you know how hard it is to add additional hours or additional time or even new programs altogether. That there's a very short framework for these candidates to master all of this information. Again, it is still open for additional comment, but the group is already working with TESOL and ACTFL for editing purposes on the document. One of the things that Dr. Lachance wanted me to share with you is that although these standards are not yet finalized and used in the public, that the Massachusetts Department of Education is already using these standards as an alignment document so that their SEA can give guidance for the programs in their state. So some pretty exciting things happening in the field. I did ask, well, what's the next step? What's the timeline on the next step? So the next step when they finish the editing is to publish. So very exciting times, and we look forward to getting some updates on what's happening with these standards. I'll give just a second to see if there are any questions. I believe that Joan and Michael are doing a presentation at La Cosecha this year on the standards again, as they did last year. So if you are there and you're interested in knowing more, that's a great way to learn a little bit more directly from them, but also if you click the link and go to the document. I don't see any questions, so I will turn it over to Mia.
Good afternoon. I am Mia Johnson, and I am excited to share with you just a debriefing from our DLI training that we had this summer in early August around assessing in compliance with the Read to Achieve legislation. So we had K2 dual language teachers from across the state come together in Durham to learn how to use the statewide assessment tool, which is M-Class Reading 3D. And we use that tool to collect data to inform our daily instruction. Throughout that full day session, those educators worked in small groups across regions and districts to gain understanding and share strategies for best practices in monitoring progress and instructing our dual language learners. We hold this training once a year, typically in early August for statewide participants, but we do follow up if there are individual questions for districts or additional needs in terms of training or analyzing the data. So if you have those questions or if you have any needs around the Spanish Reading 3D tool, I encourage you to please contact me. My contact information can be found on our dual language wiki page, but I'm also found on the K3 literacy page for the NCDPI's website.
All right, back to me. The Growing Success for English Learners Conference is an annual conference held typically in Greensboro, North Carolina. And one of the sessions that we've been able to offer is a dual language overview session, written and shared by Dr. Joan LaChance. So once again, this time you get to see her face. I've included the upcoming modules, which is an online offering that is facilitated by Dr. LaChance, because it's very similar to what we did in the actual session. So when we look at the dual language overview, we're looking at the North Carolina context specifically for dual language immersion. We're looking at things such as biliteracy, second language acquisition. It is really designed as a high-level overview, more for administrators or educators who are in some sort of leadership position, but we have found that some of the teachers that have come have also found great value in it as well. We always like to stress it's not a make and take. It's not things to take back specifically to the classroom, but it's a way to look at how your program is structured. We talked about who needs to be on your DLI team, and that's one of the pieces of the puzzle, looking at who needs to be involved and how they need to be involved. So in the face-to-face option, it was 3 days during the conference, and then you'll see here that with the modules, we have a little more time to go deeper in between the actual sessions and to come back and have those conversations with Joan. So the registration link is there if you're interested in joining, and we certainly hope you will. One of the exciting things about the conference this year is we were able to provide some sponsorships to the participants in the conference, to different conferences that have a focus on dual language immersion education. So you'll see FLANC, La Cosecha, NABE, the NCDLI 2019. All of those we now have been able to help build capacity in the state by using some of our money to actually send these educators to these different conferences. So we're very excited about that, and part of the program is that each of these people agrees to do something specifically to bring this information back locally and to the state. That could include things such as Twitter chats, doing presentations at conferences, sharing things on webinars, and so we're really excited to see how all this fleshes out and the things that these people experience while they're at the conferences and what they bring back. Another exciting professional development opportunity was just a week or so ago, September 26th and 27th in Chatham County, teaching for biliteracy. Karen Beeman was there as one of the main presenters, and we had not only people from North Carolina, from Chatham County, Chapel Hill, and Henderson, but there was also a team from Colorado and Illinois. I would like to share that there was a team from South Carolina that had hoped to attend, but because of the hurricane, they were unable to join us. It was a power-packed 2 days. I've read the book, Teaching for Biliteracy, as part of the ECU DLI certificate course, but I learned so much more by actually hearing the presentation and working on the many different pieces of the puzzle. The bridge, somehow I missed that there were 2 parts to the bridge itself between the 2 languages, but then also the metalinguistic chart. The BOOF, which I now have learned to pronounce correctly, or the Biliteracy Unit Framework. I've seen the Biliteracy Unit frameworks and have felt somewhat overwhelmed by them, but listening to the discussions, seeing the charts they had on the walls, the way that you look at the standards and you determine how the standards are going to work with the content areas, making sure that everything is framed so that the pieces are all working together, was very enlightening. We talked, of course, about being bilingual and what that means for the brain. The second half of day 1 was actually conducted in Spanish and was a model lesson, and I would consider myself a 2 in Spanish and was amazed by how, starting with oracy, I was able to move into literacy and be very successful. Another thing that I found fascinating, if you look at the logo at the top left-hand corner, you see the 2 sort of hands with the bridge, and on the left you have the green, on the right you have the blue, and in the middle you have the teal. So the green is your monolingual Spanish speaker, the blue is your monolingual English speaker, and the teal is what our students become as they go through our dual language immersion programs. And one of the wonderful things they said was, after week 1 of kindergarten, your children are all in some stage of teal. No one is still you're monolingual. They are all emergent bilinguals. And we found that very powerful to think of our students in that way as all being emergent bilinguals. Okay.
All right, so from professional development that has just happened in the debriefing, we move on to upcoming professional development, starting with the 2018 FLANC Fall Conference. FLANC is the Foreign Language Association of North Carolina, of course. Their annual fall conference is coming up October 19th to 20th, which will be held in Durham. They also have an online portion of webinars Monday through Wednesday of that week, October 15th to 17th, so just next week, right away. They have those options. They also have 15-minute sessions on Friday and Saturday, as well as 3-hour workshops on Friday evening and Saturday afternoon, and research roundtables for higher education research to be shared. One thing I wanted to highlight in particular for this year, in addition to the sessions, because there will be sessions on dual language immersion and as well as pre-conference webinars looking at that. I believe that Dr. LaChance is offering one on dual language immersion and the EdTPA. But also this year, we are going to put together the NCDLI meeting at FLANC on Saturday, October 20th. On the Saturday session of FLANC, there's a lunch or business meeting slot from 11:40 a.m. to 12:50 p.m. And that is an opportunity that we're taking as a DPI DLI team to bring together folks who are both teachers and administrators in DLI programs. You may remember that last spring we did a survey about DLI networking groups and networking opportunities, where we talked about having job-alike sharing options for administrators, for programs, and for teachers. And so this is the first face-to-face offering of that kind of networking group at the FLANC conference. So we hope you'll be able to join us there, and that we'll see you and get to hear from you as well about the sessions and so forth that you're attending at the FLANC conference. Details and registration are posted online about the FLANC conference, the link you see there. And the theme this year is who's your PFF or your professional friend forever? So who's your colleague or your collaborator that you always go to? And that's always a good thing to share in a DLI program too.
All right, so the next upcoming PD that we want to share is the North Carolina Association of Elementary Educators Conference. They will be hosting their annual conference in October, so the 28th through the 30th in Charlotte. That will be at the Embassy Suites and Convention Center. The conference will run beginning 1 p.m. on Sunday, and then we'll wrap up on noon Tuesday. Monday morning, they will have a kickoff and a special message from our own NCDPI's Deputy State Superintendent for District Support, Dr. Petrie Martin. Monday lunch will also be provided for participants. And during that time, we'll hear from keynote motivational speaker Kyle Green. Throughout the conference, participants will have the choice of attending more than 60 one-hour breakout sessions spanning all content areas. During that time, you'll have the option to go hear the 2017 National Distinguished Principal, Jason Griffin. Other well-known names in education will also be presenting, such as Kathy Bumgardner, and some of you may be familiar with the Bag Ladies. Again, at the elementary level, those are well-known names in education. My colleague, Kim McWhorter, and myself will also be featured speakers focusing on teachers as mentor models in the writing classroom. So if you're interested in more details, please check out the website as you see posted on the screen for registration and the conference brochure.
So La Cosecha, once again, I do want to say you'll see my name many times on here, and that's because I am the person who's able to attend this year. Very often we have to divide and conquer, and I believe it's ACTFL that's happening at the same time as La Cosecha. And so we have the honor of sharing about those dual language online modules that I was speaking of earlier that Joan has written and has been sharing. And so Joan and I will be sharing that. Also, we'll be sharing about supporting a variety of DLI programs. It always amazes me to hear people in other states talk about how fascinated they are with the fact that North Carolina has so many different kinds of DLI programs and how we all coexist and support each other so well. And so we've heard that several times at these conferences. So we said, you know, let's just talk about the great things we're doing and how it is that we're able to support that and make all that work. And you saw some of those pieces of the puzzle in the spotlight earlier today. And along those same lines, we thought not only does North Carolina have a variety variety of DLI programs, but we know across the country that programs are handled very differently and that policies can be very different as well as practices and the progress. And so Barbara Kennedy, who is now with the Texas Department of Education, formerly with the Center for Applied Linguistics and one of the co-authors of the Dual Language Guiding Principles, and I started talking about, let's put something together and do this. And so while we're in New Mexico, Mayra Valtierrez is going to be joining us. And then this will also be done again at the 2019 NCDLI conference as well as NABE with a different third person presenting. So if you're available, you're at La Cosecha and you want to stop by and support, we would love to see you. But we're very excited to be able to share these pieces at La Cosecha coming up pretty quickly, November 15th through the 17th.
And Ivana was right. Another conference that involves a lot of DLI content is ACTFL in 2018, the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages. It will be in New Orleans. It starts the day after the La Cosecha conference and runs November 16th through 18th. I just shared on this slide some DLI highlight sessions and things that you might be interested if you're attending ACTFL. Up at the top is the Immersion Special Interest Group, or SIG, that has a whole slate of sessions and a business meeting that takes place. Several of us in North Carolina are involved in ACTFL's Immersion SIG and will be attending those meetings. Then we had a sampling of DLI sessions that will be offered throughout the ACTFL convention that you may be interested in. So I'll just pause a moment, let you read the titles of those, and know that there are also some language-specific DLI sessions that are being offered. The sessions you see are being presented by our colleagues from Delaware, Louisiana, Minnesota, Utah, and other states, including educators from here in North Carolina. So we encourage you to find out more about the ACTFL convention if you would like, and take advantage of the opportunity to have this kind of professional development offered nationally.
So we want to make sure that you are aware that the early bird registration has been extended to October 19th for the 7th International Conference on Immersion and Dual Language Education. So there's a substantial savings by being able to get in your registration by October 19th. This is, of course, due to the devastation that we had with Hurricane Florence here in North and South Carolina and Virginia. And our hearts are going out to Florida as they're preparing for the latest hurricane. I know that the DOE there is closed for 3 days. I know that our time is running tight, but I do want to suggest that you take time to go to the website and really walk through the different pieces of the puzzle. I'm going to go a little out of order from what's on here, but it begins with school visits on February 6th. And we have 9 different school visit opportunities, and we have new programs that have been in existence a long time. We have a charter school, different languages, different program types. And so we strongly encourage you to take advantage of the opportunity to see schools both in Charlotte, Union County, and also in South Carolina. After the school visits, the next opportunity are the pre-conference workshops, which take place on the 7th. There are 10 pre-conference workshops that you can pick from, and each of them are explained and spelled out on the website. The evening of the 7th at 5 o'clock is the keynote opportunity, and that is with Virginia Mueller-Gathercole. So she will be speaking with us. She's a professor of linguistics. She will be doing the opening keynote, and then over the next 2 days, there are 4 different plenary speakers, many of them who you may have heard of, such as Jeff Zweers, Wayne Thomas and Virginia Collier, Susan Faircloth, and Bill Rivers. We also have 2 additional invited speakers, Fred Genesee and Catherine Lindholm-Leary, whom you may have heard of as well. In addition to the keynote and the plenaries, there are also symposiums that will be taking place, as well as the breakout sessions. The breakout sessions have 5 different strands, so you can really hone in on what it is you want to be focusing on during the conference. We are partnered with UNC Charlotte, ECU, NCDPI, and Carla, so sometimes you might hear us slip and say the Carla Conference. So we do hope that you will take a look at the strands if you're not already registered, that you will consider attending right here in our own backyard in North Carolina. You'll also see the Friday night at NASCAR, which is an opportunity to get together at the NASCAR Museum. Anything anybody'd like to add?
I think that takes us to our last poll question, which is, which of the upcoming conferences are you planning to participate in this year? Is it the FLANC Fall Conference, the Elementary Conference, one of the November options, La Cosecha, and the ACTFL Convention, the NCDLI 2019, or maybe you're still deciding? I'll go ahead and launch that question, and you can let us know. We'll also check the question box. All right, let's take about 10 more seconds and finish up, and then we'll wrap up our webinar right after that. All right, thank you for voting. I'm going to go ahead and close out our poll and share the results. It looks like almost half of the folks on the line are still deciding which of these conferences they're going to attend. We have almost that same number who are planning on attending NCDLI 2019 in February in Charlotte, as well as about a quarter of you who are doing one of the November options, La Cosecha or ACTFL. And we have a couple people who said they'll be at the FLANC Fall Conference. We did have a question about the FLANC Fall Conference in the question box, so I thought I'd share that response in case others had the same question. We said there would be an NCDLI meeting at that conference on Saturday, and someone asked if we need to sign up for the business meeting, and the answer is no. When you are attending the FLANC conference, those business meetings, including the one for NCDLI, will be on the schedule, and you could just choose to go to that one because the location will be indicated. All right, thank you for sharing that with us, and I hope you'll decide soon which of these opportunities and conferences you want to go to. That brings us to the end of our webinar. We just have a few reminders and resources to share with you. First and foremost, the materials from this webinar will be posted. So all of the slides you've seen, the handouts, and a recording of the webinar will be posted on our DLI events page. The recording of our webinars this year actually will be also linked from our NCDPI YouTube channel on the World Languages playlist. So that may make it easier for you to access that information, and will also give us the opportunity to provide that with closed captioning in addition to the notes that are in the slides you see here. It's indicated there where this can be found on our DLI wiki. And you see over there on the left-hand side that the DLI events tab is linked there where this is posted. Our upcoming webinars are in December, February, and April, and the dates you see noted. Those are always Tuesdays from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. That's it for our webinar. If there are any final questions, please go ahead and enter those in the question box, and we will share that. I'll be watching for questions, but in the meantime, I just want to share with you one more time who our NCDPI DLI team is, as well as their contact information should you need it. Ivana and I serve as co-leads of the team, so if you want, you can contact us directly and we can share that with whoever on the team needs that, or you can contact any member of the team that you would like to ask a question of. We do thank you for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and close out our webinar recording, but we hope you have a wonderful evening and that you're excited about the upcoming opportunities for DLI programs and eager to share all the good news about our DLI programs in North Carolina.